Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 8 tight end start or sit decisions for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, we're going to be going in depth into every single matchup from Thursday Night Football all the way until Monday Night Football, and I'll be telling you guys whether I believe you should start or sit the tight ends in every single matchup. But before we can get on into things, I would like to ask, if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure to leave a like on today's video to help boost the video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can hear about my week number 8 tight end start or sit decisions. I'd also like to ask, if you guys are on Twitter and would like to follow me on there, to please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 8 tight end start or sit decisions, beginning with Thursday Night Football. The Green Bay Packers at the Arizona Cardinals. The Green Bay Packers are down tremendous at the wide receiver position tonight. They will be without Davante Adams. They will be without Allen Lazard. So if there was ever a time for Robert Tonyan to recoup what he did last year, to kind of go back to the past and put up a game like he did down the stretch of last season, it would be this week, because there are going to be more targets going his way. Typically this season, the reason why Robert Tonyan has been a complete and utter unmitigated fucking disaster, a complete and utter dumpster fire for fantasy football, is because the guy doesn't see a lot of targets. And all of his value comes from the touchdown. So if you're getting 3, 4, 5 targets a game and you don't come down with the touchdown, then you are going to be a huge bust in that game. But this week, going up against the Arizona Cardinals, without Davante Adams, without Allen Lazard, I believe there's enough of a workload for Robert Tonyan to have a solid showing this week up against the Arizona Cardinals. Plus, little known fact, Aaron Rodgers is 6-0. 6 wins, 0 losses without Davante Adams as of recently. So that should go to show you that, hey, maybe the Packers will be very close in this game, and maybe the Packers might fuck around and beat the Arizona Cardinals. For the Cardinals, I do like Zach Ertz in this matchup. Zach Ertz, in his first ever game for the Arizona Cardinals, ends up scoring last week. It's always hard to project the Arizona Cardinals players outside of like Chase Edmonds, James Conner, and DeAndre Hopkins, because they have so many pass catchers. They've got Rondell Moore. They have Christian Kirk. They have Zach Ertz. They have all of these options to throw the ball to, so it is kind of hard to predict which one's going to be finding their way into the end zone, but I do think that Zach Ertz is a key part of the game plan of the Arizona Cardinals, so I think he will have yet another start-worthy week this week up against the Packers. The other Green Bay Packers tight end is Mercedes Lewis. We all know that on Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, it's basically a fucking tight end's wet dream, because they always have big games there. Even the backup tight end, even the left bench tight end, some guy you've never even heard of, typically ends up finding his way into the end zone, but I do not think that will be the case with Mercedes Lewis tonight up against the Arizona Cardinals. Next up, we move to the Sunday slate of games, beginning with the Cincinnati Bengals at the Jumbo Jets. CJ Uzomah has just scored so many touchdowns this season. He's basically the Robert Tonyan of this year. Going up against the Jets, there's a pretty solid chance that he moseys his way on into the end zone at least once. There's also potential for CJ Uzomah to score 2 touchdowns, because he has done that twice this season, so I believe there's a pretty solid chance that this guy is a very solid start this week, so I will be firing him up against the Jets. You basically want to play every single player up against the Jets, because they are just that bad. For the Jets, they got Ryan Griffin. They have other tight ends there as well. Their quarterback is Mike White. Maybe it's Joe Flacco. I assume it's Mike White. Doesn't matter at all. This team is a disaster, and you don't want anything to do with Ryan Griffin and friends, the tight ends of the Jumbo Jets. Next up, we got the LA Titans at the Indianapolis Colts, and my main man, Mo Alley Cox, tight end of the Indianapolis Colts. He is on an absolute roll. This guy is just scoring touchdowns left and right in every single game. Carson Wentz is starting to get his swagger back. He's starting to look like the vintage Carson Wentz. Before he ended up getting hurt in 2017, the Indianapolis Colts have unearthed the old version, the vintage Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz is heaving tugs to Mo Alley Cox game in and game out. The Tennessee Titans defense is not very good, but Nick, the Tennessee Titans shut down. Don't you remember they shut down the Kansas City Chiefs? That's okay. I understand they did that, but I do believe that Mo Alley Cox here and the Indianapolis Colts are going to look a lot better than the Kansas City Chiefs, so I got Mo Alley Cox as a start, and I think he finds his way on into the end zone. I will be sitting down the Tennessee Titans, the LA Titans tight ends. They have a couple of tight ends, and it is very unpredictable week in, week out, which guy is going to be scoring the touchdown. And typically, when they are in the red zone, they end up just running with Derrick Henry or running with Ryan Tannehill, so there is not much of a reason to be starting Anthony Firkser based upon what we've seen out of the Titans this season. Next up, we got the LA Rams at the Houston Texans. This game may be an absolute murder by the LA Rams. The Rams offense is basically unstoppable. The Houston Texans defense is complete and utter dog shit. Tyler Higbee is a guy that hasn't had all that great of a season, right? But it's because there are just a bunch of options for the LA Rams. They have Woods. They have, obviously, Cooper Kupp, who they throw the ball to so often, game in and game out. They have Van Jefferson. They have all of these guys, but if there was ever a week for this guy to score, it would be up against the Houston Texans because their defense is so bad. I expect the Rams to absolutely roll the Houston Texans. This is not going to be an even close contest. I love Tyler Higbee here up against the Texans. For the Texans, they have a couple of tight ends. They got Jordan Atkins. They got Pharaoh Brown. Neither of them interest me at all up against the LA Rams. None of them interest me at all any week. Because at the end of the day, the Houston Texans are just a bad team. It seems like maybe Tyrod Taylor will end up playing in this game. Maybe it's going to be long neck Davis Mills, but still, regardless of the quarterback play, I'm just not very comfortable playing many players from the Houston Texans, and that includes their tight end brigade. So next up, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are one of the only teams in the NFL that use a straight up tight end by committee. They don't use just one tight end. They don't use just two tight ends. They've got a threesome of tight ends that they use every single game, a triplet at the tight end position, and it is so hard to project every single week which guy is going to be the guy. Will it be Austin Hooper? Will it end up being David Njoku? Will it be Hunter Bryant on the team? You honestly probably have no idea, just like I have no idea. And going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers with a potentially hobbled Baker Mayfield or Case Keenum, it's probably best to just stay away from this whole Browns passing offense. So my lean would be to sit all of the Browns tight ends. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, Eric Ebron, Pat Freiermuth, they are both tight ends on the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are names. Those are guys, but those are not guys that you want to be playing in your lineup. The Cleveland Browns defense doesn't look amazing, but at the end of the day, I'm looking to fade all of the tight ends in this matchup. And because if it was just Eric Ebron, if I'm being honest with you guys, I would actually be pretty confident in playing Eric Ebron as one of those deep, like bottom of the barrel S tight ends, right, that have the upside. You can see the upside, but with Eric Ebron and Pat Freiermuth just getting kind of eating into each other's snap shares, their snap count, I just don't really want to be starting either of them this week up against the Browns and every week, basically, unless one of them was to get hurt. We don't root for injuries here, knock on wood, but what I'm saying is if one of them was to get injured, then maybe we would see some upside out of the other tight end. But before we get on into the next game, I would like to ask if you guys have ended up enjoying today's video thus far, to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below if you are new, and whether you are new or not, please make sure to leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. So next game, we got the Philadelphia Eagles at the Detroit Lions. In this game, I like Dallas Goedert as well as TJ Hawkinson. Game in and game out, TJ Hawkinson just has an uncapped amount of upside because he is the best wide receiver on the Detroit Lions. Besides maybe DeAndre Swift, he might be the best because he just sees so many dump-offs game in and game out from Jared Goff. But at the end of the day, TJ Hawkinson is still going to be seeing likely a decent amount of targets in this matchup. Going up against the Eagles, this is a game that I wouldn't be surprised if the Detroit Lions actually won this game. They have been losing so many heartbreakers game in and game out. They were definitely outmatched by the LA Rams last week in that double revenge game with Matt Stafford against the Lions, as well as Jared Goff up against the LA Rams, but they still have some fight in them every single game. It's very fun to watch the Detroit Lions, and I wouldn't be surprised if they won this game, so maybe this is going to be the biggest TJ Hawkinson showing on the season, and the Eagles defense is just about all right, so I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up happening. Dallas Goedert is a start with Zach Ertz gone. That really does broaden the horizons of upsides for Dallas Goedert, because without Zach Ertz, this is a team that really likes to use the tight end. Jalen Hurts really likes to throw the ball to the tight end, so Dallas Goedert being the number one guy there clearly, and there not really being another tight end there sniffing up his ass trying to take his job, then Dallas Goedert is in for a solid showing here up against a not so hot Detroit Lions defense, and not so hot may even be a compliment because that defense is fucking bad. Next up, we got the San Francisco 49ers at the Bears. The Chicago Bears. Ross Dwelley of the San Francisco 49ers is the replacement for George Kittle, while I think the San Francisco 49ers Cleveland steamer the Chicago Bears. At the end of the day, I just don't think I want to be starting Ross Dwelley. I think the running backs will play well in this game. I think Deebo Samuel will probably have a very good game as well. I just don't really see it when I rub the crystal ball. I don't really see too strong of an outcome where Ross Dwelley has a big game. Cole Kmet looked pretty good last week up against the Bucks, but that was also in just at the end of the game, them throwing the ball a million times. Shout out to Cole Kmet clutching me coming in second on DraftKings last week. Shout out to Cole Kmet, the GOAT for that. But for, when you're not just punting at the tight end position on DraftKings, right? You're setting your real fucking fantasy football lineup. You're not going to want to have Cole Kmet in there. I'll tell you that much. Next up, we got the Panthers at the Atlanta Falcons. In this one, I'm going to be firing up Mr. Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts broke out in London. Then he has the bye week. Then he comes up last week up against my Miami Dolphins and just absolutely skull fucks us. There is no nice way to give rap what Kyle Pitts said. No nice way to say it. The Dolphins got bent over the table and relentlessly butt-fucked by Kyle Pitts. He did us dirty, and it was amazing to watch. Like, not for me, though, because I'm a Dolphins fan, but looking back, he looks amazing out there going up against the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are a pretty underrated defense, but I still do think that Kyle Pitts just has such a strong grasp on the target share in this Falcons offense that he will have yet another big game. This will be the third solid game in a row out of Kyle Pitts, finally going into that mold that everyone talked about him being in all offseason about how good he was, and it shouldn't really shock you guys. Hey, this is a guy that was compared to fucking Megatron, to Calvin Johnson, to this Hall of Fame wide receiver going into the draft, so obviously he was going to be good. My concern with Kyle Pitts in fantasy football drafts was I just thought, hey, maybe he's going a little bit early, considering when you look back in the last 10 years, only one rookie tight end has finished inside the top 5, and that was Evan Ingram. Was that a reason to completely fade Kyle Pitts? Of course not, but I just thought where he was going in drafts was wrong. That was the case for the first couple of weeks, but now it seems like it's Kyle Pitts season. You need to continue to roll him out. I love him in this matchup up against the Panthers. For the Panthers, they have Ian Thomas, they have Tommy, make that ass tremble, but at the end of the day, neither of those guys seem to be ideal starts. Plus, Mono Man Sam looks down terrible right now, down tremendous. This guy is playing absolutely atrocious. He probably wishes the season was only 3 games, because after the first 3 games of the season, Sam Darnold would have been the comeback player of the year. Now, Nick, what did Sam Darnold come back from? He came back from the wrath of Adam Gase holding him down his whole career. And then, if the season ends right there, you roll the credits on the season, you're like, wow, Sam Darnold is back. Give this man a fat contract. But in reality, Sam Darnold is still Sam Darnold, and he just doesn't look all that great. So I'm very nervous about these Carolina Panthers tight ends. Next up, we got my Miami Dolphins at the Buffalo Bills. If my boy Dawson Knox, one time, if you are with me, was still the starting tight end of the Buffalo Bills because of an injury, obviously, he didn't lose his job. He should be back relatively soon. But if he was the starting tight end in this game, I would be screaming to the fucking mountaintops that you need to fire up the Buffalo Bills tight end Dawson Knox, because Dawson Knox was on fire before he ended up getting hurt. He threw a touchdown pass in that game up against the Tennessee Titans, but they lost the game. I understand, but he threw that with a broken arm. Something is broke, maybe a broken finger, something like that. I don't think he has a broken arm, because I don't think he can come back in 3 weeks from a broken arm, so it's probably a broken finger. Whatever it was, still very impressive for Dawson Knox. I think that he would have had a great game here, but it is Tommy Sweeney. Maybe he scores a touchdown. I just don't really want to be betting that way, so I will lean him as a sit. Mike Gesicki, tight end of the Miami Dolphins. This is a guy who is also on fire. Despite the Dolphins getting slapped around by the Atlanta Falcons last week, Mike Gesicki had another solid game. Tua Tagovailoa does seem to have grown a liking to feeding the rock to Mike Gesicki. This offense seems to be centered around giving the ball to Mike Gesicki, which is great for his fantasy football value. Going up against the Bills, it's going to be a tough match. Tough task, because the Bills have one of the best pass defenses in the NFL, but don't look too deep into that. Just look into the amount of targets Gesicki should be getting, and you should be perfectly happy firing up Mike Gesicki this week. Next up, we got the New England Patriots at the LA Chargers. In this one, I like Hunter Henry for the Patriots. I understand that every single week, people are really trying to do this mental gymnastics, trying to talk themselves into starting Jonnu Smith. And I understand, hey, Jonnu Smith is out there a lot. It's not that Hunter Henry is the clear number 1 tight end on the team, but he is in terms of getting targeted. Hunter Henry is eating up these targets like Ezekiel Elliott eats cereal in the morning. He's eating it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and second dinner, dessert, all of those things. Hunter Henry is feasting. He keeps scoring touchdowns. Going up against the LA Chargers will be a tough task. It's not like going up against the Jets last week, but I still do think that Hunter Henry should be worthy of a start. Jared Cook, he's kind of one of those bottom of the barrel-esque starts. Not a guy that I love, but I could see him doing pretty solid up against the New England Deflatrates. Jonnu Smith is a sit because, again, he's just not really getting all that many targets. Next up, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Seattle Seahawks, and I'm going to be starting my boy, Dan Arnold. Get to the chopper. My Arnold Schwarzenegger voice is not very good. It is not very good, but I try to do it. Maybe it's a swing and a miss, but at the end of the day, I still think it's funny. so I'll do it all the time, even if you guys don't like it. He seems like he's pretty involved in this Jags offense, and going up against the Seattle Seahawks, pretty solid matchup. I mean, the Seattle Seahawks defense, I like them in fantasy because I just know that everything could come crumbling down. Hurrah! We won our first game in 20 games. They beat the Dolphins in London. They have a bye last week, and then they just disappoint in a big fashion here up against Seattle. So Dan Arnold's not a premier option, but he is a guy that I am willing to stream because I don't love the Seattle defense. Gerald Everett, they have a bunch of tight ends for the Seattle Seahawks. It is just no bueno to be starting any of them, in my opinion, because Geno Smith looks like complete and utter dog shit. Next up, we move to the Washington football team going up against the Denver Broncos. In this one, I want to be starting both tight ends. Big Dick Ricky Seals-Jones, tight end of the Washington football team, as well as Noah Fant, tight end of the Denver Broncos. It appears that Jerry Jeudy is going to be good to go in this game, which will be good as a whole for this Broncos offense, because while Tim Patrick, he's fine, right? He's not a bad wide receiver. Clearly, Jerry Jeudy is that next step up. Jerry Jeudy may even be the best wide receiver on the team if you're talking about skill set, comparing him to Courtland Sutton, but Noah Fant is still involved in this offense. The Washington football team is complete and utter shit at playing defense, so you shouldn't be surprised at all if Noah Fant has a big day. Ricky Seals-Jones has been a very reliable tight end ever since Logan Thomas ended up getting hurt, so I'll continue on the Ricky Seals-Jones train and play him this week up against the Denver Broncos. Next up, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the New Orleans Saints. In this one, it seems like it is going to be Mr. Rob Gronkowski's return game, and I will fire him up this week up against the New Orleans Saints. I'm not 100% that he is going to be playing all of the snaps, right? That he's going to be in his normal snap share. Now, normally, he's not always in the game, right? O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate, they sneak their way on in there, but Gronk is in there for a lot of the game. Will that be the case going up against the New Orleans Saints? I am not 100% sure, but I am still confident that you should be playing Rob Gronkowski this week. Just not a guy that I would consider in the top 5 or probably even in the top 10. I think it is a little bit risky based upon him returning from injury. Adam Troutman, the Fish, Juwan Johnson, the other Saints tight ends, they are irrelevant in this game. Those are just two guys that to me are a little bit too risky week in and week out. Adam Troutman is a guy that will be seeing the targets, but then typically when they get into the red zone, it's Juwan Johnson season. That's just not the game I'm willing to be playing this week up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Next up, we got the Dallas Cowboys at the Minnesota Vikings. In this one, I like Dalton Schultz as well as Tyler Conklin. Dalton Schultz is one of the more involved options in this offense. Very interesting to see what it's going to be like with Michael Gallup returning back to the team. Does that kind of detract heavily from Dalton Schultz's workload? Do we see more Michael Gallup? Are we seeing less Michael Gallup than usual in terms of getting the ball? I understand that he's going to be on the field because he's the number 3 wide receiver, but what does this do to the offense? You know, it's kind of up in the air, but Dalton Schultz is a guy that could score any given week. The Dallas Cowboys should be able to apply pressure to the Minnesota Vikings, which is why I like Dalton Schultz. The bring back for the Minnesota Vikings is that I think they're going to have to be passing a lot in this game to catch up, to play catch up with the Dallas Cowboys, to crawl their way on back into the game, and that is going to up the passing volume for the Minnesota Vikings, meaning Tyler Conklin has a better chance to score in this matchup. And final game here, we got Monday Night Football between the New York Football Giants at the Kansas City Chiefs. In this one, I like Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce hasn't really seemed like the old Travis Kelce this season. It's not because he's bad. It's because this offense doesn't look good. It really doesn't. The Kansas City Chiefs have fallen off the edge of the earth. But you better believe you still gotta fucking start the guy because he's still one of the best tight ends in the NFL. I think he has a good game here. Evan Ingram, easy E, even with all the injuries to the Giants. Come on, you just don't want to be starting Evan Ingram. He's just not that good. So, even up against the Chiefs, he's a no-no for me. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. While you're down there, make sure to leave a like on today's video as well. It would help us out a ton. So thank you guys all for watching. I love you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. I'll be back later with a live stream at around 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Love you guys as always. Goodbye.